As someone who's been investing for more than a decade, I look back all the time and wish I'd known loads of different things before I started. In fact, some of the mistakes I made are just so embarrassing, but I know that I'm not alone and I won't be the last person who messed things up with their money. So here's 5 things I wish I knew before I started investing. Firstly, I wish I'd known about the different types of accounts and why they are so important, especially when it comes to tax. I remember one of the first proper investing accounts I opened. I was on the homepage of a big broker and I was faced with about half a dozen different types of account to choose from before I'd even decided what I wanted to actually invest in. I had no idea what I was meant to choose, and things like ISA accounts sounded complicated, or they seemed like accounts that would force me to lock my money away and not be able to access them. I really wish that I'd taken the time to learn just a little bit about what all the types of account mean and why they are just so important. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the details here in this short video, but safe to say, here in the UK, it is essential that you know the basics when it comes to the types of accounts that you can open. The biggest reason for this is that if you do this correctly, you can end up saving a huge amount in taxes that you could be liable for later on. As a good place to start, I think everyone has to learn about ISA accounts, and these include your cash ISA, your lifetime ISA, the stocks and shares ISA, and the innovative finance ISA. I've done a detailed separate video on ISA accounts and most importantly the stocks and shares ISA, but in short, anything you put into an ISA gets protected from taxes. Also, every UK adult gets up to £20,000 per tax year that you can put in across all of your ISA accounts. This is way more than most people will ever use, and it's way more than most other countries in the rest of the world have. Ultimately, what this means is that, say you invest for 10 or 20 years and build up a nice pot of money. Let's say you've managed to have £100,000 invested in total, and of that £100,000, you've put in £50,000 of it in your own cash. If you sold all of that at once, you'd make a £50,000 profit. Now, if you didn't use an ISA account, that amount of money would be liable to capital gains tax. And this could be anything from 10 to 20% depending on your total income in that tax year. Now, you can always check the government website for the latest figures. But anyway, just remember to use your ISA accounts and take advantage of them. I can't think of any good reason why you'd invest your money outside of an ISA account. It's an allowance that's there for you to use, but most people in the UK still don't know they exist or how they work. On that note, as well as a guide on the basics of a stocks and shares ISA, I've also done a video on the best stocks and shares ISA accounts that you can use, and you can find that on my channel if you have a look around here. Also, I do keep the links in the description for the platforms that I use, and there's offers for free cash or free shares to help you get started if you haven't already got one. Remember, this year you can now open as many stocks and shares ISA accounts as you like, finally, so if you haven't already got one, now is as good a time as any. Okay, next up, this is the most boring topic for everyone, and arguably one of the most complicated as well. The moment I even say the word, I know a lot of your brains are just going to switch off and you'll be thinking, I used to like this guy. I wish I'd known at least a little bit about pensions. Now, I don't mean all the nitty-gritty details here, I just mean some of the super basic stuff. For example, if you are an employee in the UK and you earn more than £10,000 in a full year, which will probably be most of the people watching this video, you will be automatically enrolled into a workplace pension. You are putting money away every time you get paid, and I don't blame you if you have no idea where that money goes or what the rules are. In short though, both you and your employer is putting money away into a pension every single time you get paid. And this is generally 5% of your wages from you and 3% from them. But one thing I would say here is that many employers will be more generous than that, and they sometimes will match it if you put more money in. This is so good because it's probably one of the best investments you can make. It's literally free money, and my personal view is that you should at least go and find out what the details are and what they will match. Also, one thing I'd wish I'd known more about is how to go about choosing what you want your pension invested in. It's your choice, it's your money, but somehow most of the UK gets their money invested into the default fund options which the pension providers put together. Not only are the default funds potentially not the best option for most people, but they can also be more expensive too, and this can add up in the long run. Now, you all know I'm not a financial advisor and never claim to be one, but we have to do better in the UK with this kind of stuff. So if there's anything more I should add to this point, is that you should at least go and find out who your pension's with, how much you're putting in, and where it's invested. Also, don't forget about old pensions as well. That money is yours, it's sat in some account somewhere, invested in a fund that might not even be right for you. Maybe I also need to do lots more videos on this topic, but there is a lot of good information out there at least to get you started. Now, the third biggest thing I wish I'd known all comes down to an investor's best friend, index funds. Something that many regular viewers will probably be sick of me talking about on this channel. I wish I knew just how powerful and simple these investments were. I think just like most people, when you hear the word investing for the first time, you assume you have to be an expert to do it or have loads of money. I think we assume that investing is just for rich people or that it's all too complicated, as we have to know about what stocks to pick and what time to invest. This could not be further from the truth, and I just wish that I'd known about this so much earlier, as honestly, I'd be so much better off. Again, like the other points, I don't want to go into loads of details here, as I've got loads of videos on my channel that explain all of those details, but let me just say that they let you invest in the stock market without having to worry about picking the right stock to invest in. They keep things super simple for you, and you can end up owning hundreds, if not thousands of companies, all from a single investment. And the best parts about them are the cherry on top for me. Firstly, they're really cheap to invest in because they have nice low ongoing fees. Other funds, which are managed by some of the people you might see on TV or read about, have high fees as they want you to pay them to try and pick the best stocks. And secondly, the best part, which still surprises me, is that index fund investors can end up beating professional money managers and most other types of investor. You might ask why this is, and it all comes down to the fact that picking the right stocks is hard because we don't know the future. Think of it like this: you can be a fully qualified accountant that has all of the skills to look at companies' financial accounts. You can have every single bit of data available to you and all of the research, but that still does not mean that the stock you invest in will go up in value, during the time at least that you own it. If it was easy to pick stocks and predict the future, we'd all be doing it and there would be nothing to gain. Just think about all of the big companies that have failed before we were leading the world just a few years ago. Nokia, anyone? What about Xerox, Kodak, or even BlackBerry? These companies dominated their space, and many people might have said, there's no way they can lose, so let's invest in these companies. I can almost guarantee you that in the next 20 years, the companies at the top today are not going to be the same ones as today, or at very least, that order will change dramatically. Okay, leading on nicely from that point, number 4 for me is this one. I wish I'd known that investing is going to be hard. Now, although some of the principles in investing are simple, and I think it's easier to invest now than it's ever been before, sticking with investing and doing it for the long run is not easy at all. Now, one of the biggest factors for this is because the market, and the world in general, is highly unpredictable, random, and all kinds of things can happen that might cause us to lose faith. Investing sounds great when everything's going up every day and your account looks great because you're making money on paper, but the moment things start to take a turn for the worse, like they did during 2020, 2022, or even before that in the global financial crisis, it becomes a lot harder to do. Our human nature fights against us to try and protect us when we see bad things or invest in things that might cause us a loss. So investing our hard-earned money when the market feels like it's going to crash is such a difficult thing. And until you face those hard times, it's very easy to convince yourself that it's easy and that you'll stick with it. Everyone is a long-term investor until they aren't. And everyone says that they'll buy at the bottom and sell at the top until they do the exact opposite. I think it was Mike Tyson who said the famous quote that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And this is exactly the same with investing. So you can have a great plan, but until you experience that hardship and loss, you won't know how you'll react. All I can really say here is that, personally for me, I automate my investing as much as possible. I invest at the start of every month, no matter what, into my stocks and shares ISA account and my pension. By trying to take emotions out of it, I like to think that I'll be ready for whatever. But either way, we can cross that bridge together whenever the next crash comes, because whatever happens next, there will be tough times at some point. We just don't know when they'll happen. We do know that they happen a lot more than we realise though, and this is all part of the market. If you want to ride the roller coaster, you better be strapped in, ready for the ride up, the downs, and the inevitable time when it actually gets stuck on the way up. Funny story, I got stuck on the Smiler once at Alton Towers when you get taken vertically up. Now I was with my brother and we were on the ride for the 10th time that day. Now I was joking around to a couple of scared girls next to us. It would be funny if it kind of stopped here and broke down. And I kid you not, we were stuck just before the top, facing right up like this. You should have seen their faces and seen the looks on it. I could not have got the timing better. Okay, final point to finish on a positive note. I wish I knew how easy it was. This will sound weird, but once you get over some of the complex jargon and overly complex words they use in this industry, it really isn't that difficult to understand. I think it's the same as any other industry when you think about it. I think of another example in my own life. I'm a big nerd who loves my computers and I've built them and tinkered with them for years, but before I made them myself, I would have no idea about what cable went where and where to plug stuff in. Now, I remember an old Dell desktop computer that I used to have after saving up for a whole summer of working hard. Eventually, I wanted to upgrade the graphics card, and I remember taking the side panel off and just thinking, okay, what the hell am I looking at here? But after lots of reading, lots of videos, you slowly start to realise that a lot of this isn't as complicated as you make out in your head. Most of the things in investing, just like in computers, are standard or they mean the same thing. For example, with investing, there are thousands of funds, but once you understand the jargon, it becomes quite simple. Say you wanted to find an index fund that tracks the S&P 500, one of the most popular ones in the world. You'll see that there are so many funds out there, all doing virtually the same thing. There are tiny differences for some, but generally speaking, you'll do well if you just pick one of them that's cheap to invest in and stick with it for the long run. Yes, that's obviously oversimplified, but hopefully you get the point. I promise you that once you learn some of the basic things about investing, which I hope you can find on my channel, it will become a way less scary place. And if you can make a sandwich, or you can make a cup of tea, you can invest your money as well. It truly is that easy, but I just wish that I'd known all of that before I started. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. As always, happy investing.